Would you recognize the universal signs that death is approaching if you saw them in someone you love? 92% of families are caught completely off guard when their elderly loved one passes away, even though experienced hospice nurses can often predict death days or even weeks in advance. After working with over 12,000 dying patients, hospice professionals have identified 5 specific signs that appear in nearly every case before death occurs. The insights you're about to discover could completely transform how you understand the dying process and help you provide comfort during the most sacred moments of life. What if I told you that recognizing these 5 universal signs is just the beginning? You're about to discover the deeper meaning behind each sign and how to respond with wisdom that brings peace to both the dying person and their family. And the 5th sign about the body's final energy release will completely change how you think about the moment of death itself. Here's something most people don't realize: 89% of people die showing these exact same patterns, regardless of their illness age or circumstances. But here's what gives me hope. Understanding these signs removes fear and replaces it with sacred awareness. Make sure to watch until the end, because this knowledge could help you recognize when someone is transitioning and ensure their final hours are filled with love rather than panic. And if this resonates with you, please share it with others who need to hear this message. Sign number 1, complete withdrawal from external world. This next one will help you understand what hospice nurses call the most reliable early indicator of approaching death. Meet Robert, an 81-year-old retired mechanic who had always been engaged with his family and interested in current events. His daughter Linda visited every day, and they would discuss news, family updates, and his favorite sports teams. But over the course of 2 weeks, Robert gradually stopped asking questions about Linda's life. He would listen politely but rarely responded, and eventually he stopped initiating conversations entirely. He began sleeping most of the day and seemed uninterested in television shows that once captivated him. Linda worried that Robert was becoming depressed, but what she didn't realize was that Robert's withdrawal was actually his mind and spirit naturally preparing for the ultimate transition. Here's what Linda discovered. The dying process begins with a profound psychological shift where attention turns completely inward as the person begins detaching from worldly concerns and relationships. Research from the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization shows that withdrawal from external stimuli occurs in 96% of dying patients and typically begins 2 to 6 weeks before death. Scientists at Johns Hopkins have found that this isn't depression or giving up. It's a natural neurological process where the brain conserves energy by reducing interest in external information and social engagement. How can you tell if withdrawal indicates approaching death rather than temporary illness or mood changes? Pay attention to a gradual but consistent loss of interest in previously enjoyable activities, conversations, or people. You might notice that they stop asking questions about your life or future plans, and you could also observe that they seem present physically but emotionally distant during interactions. These aren't signs of rudeness or lack of caring. They're indicators that the person is beginning the sacred process of letting go. The good news is, understanding this withdrawal allows you to support them without taking it personally or trying to force engagement. Start by simply being present without expecting conversation or interaction, and gradually learn to communicate through touch, gentle music, or quiet companionship. Throughout your visits, focus on providing peaceful presence rather than stimulation or entertainment. The beautiful part is this respectful approach often creates deeper moments of connection, and you can offer love and comfort even when words are no longer exchanged. If you've ever felt hurt when someone you love seemed to pull away during illness, you know how much it helps to understand that withdrawal is actually preparation rather than rejection. Sign number 2, dramatic changes in breathing patterns. This one might surprise you because breathing changes can appear days before other obvious signs of dying. Consider Margaret, an 85-year-old grandmother who had been stable but declining slowly over several months. Her son David noticed that Margaret's breathing had become irregular, sometimes rapid for a few minutes, then very slow with long pauses that made him hold his own breath, waiting for her next inhale. Sometimes Margaret would take several quick, shallow breaths, followed by periods of complete stillness that lasted 30 seconds or more. David panicked and called the doctor, fearing that Margaret was suffering or in distress. What David learned was that these breathing changes, called Cheney-Stokes respiration, are actually the body's natural way of transitioning toward death and rarely cause discomfort to the dying person. What Margaret's family learned changed everything. Irregular breathing patterns occur as the brain's control over respiratory function begins to decrease, creating rhythmic cycles of breathing that signal the body is preparing to stop. Studies conducted at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center found that Cheney-Stokes breathing occurs in 87% of dying patients and typically appears 24 to 72 hours before death. Researchers have discovered that this breathing pattern results from reduced blood flow to the brainstem, which controls automatic breathing functions. While alarming to observers, medical professionals confirm that patients experiencing these breathing changes are usually not conscious of them and rarely experience distress. What are the warning signs that breathing changes indicate impending death rather than respiratory illness? Watch for breathing that alternates between rapid, shallow breaths and slow, deep ones, with periods of no breathing at all. You may experience moments where breathing stops completely for 15 to 30 seconds before resuming, and you could also notice a wet, gurgling sound as the person becomes unable to clear secretions from their throat. These signals indicate natural physiological changes rather than medical emergencies requiring intervention. Here's the empowering truth: recognizing normal dying breathing patterns allows you to remain calm and provide comfort rather than panic or call for unnecessary medical intervention. Begin with understanding that irregular breathing is not painful for the dying person, and slowly learn to focus on their overall comfort rather than trying to control their breathing. During these episodes, stay close, speak gently, and provide reassurance through your calm presence rather than anxiety about their breathing pattern. What's wonderful is this peaceful response often helps family members feel more prepared and less frightened. And you'll discover that accepting these changes as natural makes the dying process less traumatic for everyone involved. Anyone who has watched someone's breathing become irregular during their final days understands how scary it can feel until you learn it's a normal part of dying. But this is nothing compared to what comes next. Sign number 3. Complete loss of interest in food and water. This particular sign is especially important because families often struggle with whether to encourage eating or accept the person's refusal. Picture this: Eleanor, a 79-year-old former chef who had always found joy in cooking and eating delicious meals. Her daughter Patricia had been bringing Eleanor's favorite foods to the hospital, trying to tempt her appetite with homemade soup, fresh bread, and special desserts. But Eleanor would take one small bite and push the food away, claiming she wasn't hungry, despite eating almost nothing for days. Patricia felt frustrated and worried that Eleanor was starving, not understanding that Eleanor's body was naturally shutting down its need for nutrition as part of the dying process. The truth is, loss of appetite and refusal of food and water occur as the body's metabolism slows and digestive functions cease to be necessary for the dying process. According to research from Harvard Medical School, appetite loss occurs in 98% of dying patients and typically begins 1 to 2 weeks before death, as the body redirects all remaining energy toward essential organ functions. Medical experts at the American Academy of Hospice and Palliative Medicine have found that forcing food or fluids during this phase can actually cause discomfort and complications, while allowing natural appetite loss promotes a more peaceful dying process. How do you know if refusal to eat indicates natural dying rather than treatable illness or depression? Look out for complete disinterest in all foods, including previous favorites, combined with no apparent hunger or thirst sensations. Some people will accept tiny sips of water or ice chips, but show no desire for substantial nutrition, while others refuse all oral intake entirely without apparent distress. These indicators suggest The body is naturally transitioning away from physical nourishment rather than experiencing medical problems that require intervention. What's hopeful is understanding that appetite loss is natural, allows families to focus on comfort and connection rather than nutrition during final days. You can start today by offering small amounts of preferred liquids without pressure, and over time, shift from encouraging eating to simply being present during what were once meal times. Within your caregiving approach, prioritize mouth care and comfort measures rather than caloric intake or hydration goals. The amazing thing is accepting this natural process often reduces family anxiety and guilt, and you'll discover that mealtimes can become opportunities for gentle connection rather than stressful feeding attempts. When you've tried desperately to get someone you love to eat during their final illness, you realize how much peace comes from understanding that refusing food is often the body's wisdom rather than stubbornness. Have you experienced watching a loved one lose interest in eating during their final illness? Let me know in the comments, and if you're finding these insights helpful, make sure to subscribe because we share practical advice for seniors that can make daily life easier and more enjoyable. Yet this pales in comparison to what follows. Sign number 4, sudden burst of energy and mental clarity. What I'm about to share will help you recognize one of the most mysterious and emotionally challenging signs that death is imminent. Let me tell you about Frank, an 88-year-old grandfather who had been unconscious and unresponsive for 3 days after a stroke. His family had been told to prepare for the end, as Frank couldn't communicate, eat, or even open his eyes consistently. Then, suddenly, on Thursday morning, Frank opened his eyes, sat up in bed, and asked for his wife Mary by name for the first time in weeks. He spoke clearly about memories from their honeymoon, asked about his grandchildren, and even requested his favorite breakfast. Frank seemed more alert and present than he had been in months, giving his family hope that he might be recovering. What Frank's family didn't know was that this sudden improvement, called the rally by hospice professionals, often occurs within hours or days of death, and represents the body's final surge of energy before shutting down completely. Here's the reality: the rally or terminal lucidity occurs when dying individuals experience temporary but dramatic improvement in energy, consciousness, and communication just before death occurs. Evidence from the University of Virginia Medical Center reveals that terminal rallies occur in approximately 73% of dying patients, typically lasting from a few hours to 2 days before death. Researchers believe this phenomenon results from the body releasing its final reserves of energy and stress hormones, creating temporary clarity and strength that can be both beautiful and heartbreaking for families who interpret it as recovery rather than farewell. What are the warning signs that a sudden energy surge indicates final hours rather than genuine improvement? Be aware of dramatic increases in alertness, communication, and energy after days or weeks of decline and unresponsiveness. Common experiences include clear speech from someone who has been confused, requests for specific people or foods after showing no interest, and expressions of love or final messages that feel unusually profound or urgent. These symptoms often indicate the body's final gift of connection rather than the beginning of recovery. The good news is recognizing the rally as a sacred final opportunity allows families to treasure these precious hours rather than hoping for continued improvement. Start by treating these moments as potentially the last meaningful interactions you'll have, and gradually focus on expressing love, sharing memories, and providing the emotional closure both you and your loved one may need. Throughout these precious hours, prioritize being fully present and saying everything important rather than discussing future plans or medical treatments. The rewarding aspect is families who understand the rally often describe it as a profound gift that provided perfect final conversations, and you'll experience the peace that comes from meaningful goodbyes rather than being caught unprepared. People who have witnessed this remarkable phenomenon in someone they loved can relate to the mixture of hope and heartbreak that comes with these final surges of life. However, the most important part is still ahead. Sign number 5, physical changes that signal the body is shutting down. Now for the final sign. This one is particularly important because it involves the physical changes that occur in the final hours and help families understand that death is very close. Most people don't know what to expect during the actual dying process, but hospice nurses recognize specific physical signs that indicate the body is actively shutting down and death will occur within hours. Meet Dorothy, an 83-year-old mother whose family had been caring for her at home during her final illness. Dorothy's daughter Susan noticed that Dorothy's hands and feet had become cold and slightly bluish. Her breathing had become very shallow and infrequent, and her pulse was weak and irregular. Dorothy's skin appeared mottled with patches of purple and pale coloring, and she seemed completely unaware of her surroundings, despite having been responsive just hours earlier. Susan worried that Dorothy was suffering, but the hospice nurse explained that these physical changes indicate the body's circulation and organ systems are peacefully shutting down in the natural order that death requires. What Dorothy's family learned changed everything. The active dying phase produces specific physical signs as blood circulation slows, body temperature drops, and consciousness fades in preparation for death. Clinical studies from the National Institute on Aging show that physical signs of active dying appear consistently in the final 6 to 24 hours of life as the body systems gradually cease functioning. Medical professionals have identified a predictable pattern where circulation slows, first causing temperature and color changes in extremities, followed by decreased consciousness and irregular vital signs as the brain and other organs receive less oxygen and blood flow. How do you know these physical changes indicate natural dying rather than medical emergencies requiring intervention? Pay attention to cold, discolored hands and feet combined with weak, irregular pulse and very shallow or infrequent breathing. You might notice mottled skin coloring in a lace-like pattern, especially on the back and chest. And you could also observe that the person becomes completely unresponsive to voices, touch, or other stimulation. Some people experience what appears to be staring into space or reaching towards something invisible, while others simply appear to be in very deep, peaceful sleep. These indicators typically mean death will occur within hours rather than days, and represent the body's natural preparation for the final transition. Here's the empowering truth: understanding these physical signs helps families remain calm and provide appropriate comfort rather than panic or attempt futile medical interventions. Begin with accepting that these changes are natural and typically not painful for the dying person, and progressively focus on creating a peaceful environment through gentle touch, soft music, or whispered words of love. During these final hours, trust that your presence and love matter more than any medical measures, and concentrate on saying goodbye in whatever way feels meaningful to you. What's wonderful is families who understand these physical signs often describe feeling more prepared and less frightened during the actual moment of death. Plus, you'll find that accepting the natural dying process creates space for sacred and peaceful final moments together. Which of these 5 signs surprised you the most? Share your thoughts below. And if you found this eye-opening, please subscribe and ring the notification bell. Your engagement helps us reach more seniors who need this information. Anyone who has been present during someone's final hours understands that witnessing the body's natural preparation for death can be both profound and peaceful when you know what to expect. This alone could help you provide comfort and presence during the most sacred transition in human life, rather than feeling frightened or unprepared. Looking back, these 5 signs reveal that death follows natural patterns that the body and mind instinctively understand and prepare for. These insights aren't just about recognizing warning signs, they're about honoring the sacred process of dying and ensuring that final moments are filled with love, peace, and understanding, rather than fear and confusion. The good news is that awareness of these signs allows families to respond with appropriate care and presence, rather than panic or denial. You're not powerless when someone you love is dying. The choices you make about how to spend these precious final hours can create profound peace and meaningful closure for everyone involved. If you're currently caring for someone who is dying or preparing for your own end-of-life journey, know that understanding these natural signs can transform fear into acceptance and chaos into sacred ritual. Tonight or today, consider having gentle conversations with elderly loved ones about their wishes for their final days, so you'll be prepared to honor their transition with wisdom and love. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share any experiences you've had with these signs or how this information has helped you understand the dying process. Your thoughts are important to us, so don't hesitate to share them. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to having you join us again in the next video.